do some kind of a funky rollout pass on 4th and less than a yard and that's coaching malpractice, Seth. It is the Lehocky Eagles post-game show. I'm Mike Missinelli with Derek Gunn and Seth Joyner. Let me illustrate the difference of these two teams right now. Even though Dallas was effective in the second half, I get it. But let's look at a couple things in the first half which kind of exemplifies the difference in the coaching level of both these teams. All right, the first drive, the Eagles drive the ball down. They have a 4th and 4 on that drive, right? 4th and 4. They decide to go for it. Now, I thought points on the board early on would have been, but they decided to go for it. The Cowboys give them an offsides to get a first down at the 5, and that's where Miles Sanders gets the rush on the next play for a 7-0 score. So then they go up 14-0 after Rush's pass is deflected by Bradbury, pops in the air, Gardner Johnson intercepts it. Then they just grind it out on him. Sanders for 9, Sanders for 3, Sanders for 8, Scott for 2, Scott for 8. Sanders got stopped for a minus and then Hurts an RPO pass to Brown. It's 14-0. Now, Dallas on the next drive, they get to a situation where they have CeeDee Lamb looks like he has a first down.
Right.
He stretches out. It looks like he's got the first down. If there was ever a time for a challenge, it's that play.
Exactly.
Instead, what they do, they rush to the line of scrimmage. They do some kind of a funky rollout pass on 4th and less than a yard and that's coaching malpractice, Seth.
You know, Mike McCarthy is legendary for these types of instances, you know, where he makes a wrong clock management decision. I mean, clearly you're in a situation, if you're not going to challenge it, which they should have challenged it. I mean, you got 30, staff sitting up in the booth and they're watching screens all over the place. Somebody should have called down to him and say, hey, you might want to take a look at this. This is worth challenging. Because they probably would have got the first down if they would have challenged it. But he exacerbates not challenging it by deciding to go for it on their own 34-yard line.
And rushing the play. It looked like a discombobulated play. It's a 4th and less than a yard. It's a sneak. If you get to the line, you sneak for that first down. They roll out, throw a pass.
You have two running backs with incredible lower body strength in Tony Pollard and Ezekiel Elliott. First of all, why are you rushing that play? Because you gave them a short field. They turn around and they had 3 more points on the board to go up by 17. You play right into the hands. That's one of the biggest negatives that Dallas fans are screaming about when it comes to Mike McCarthy, was his inability to make decisions, not only in a timely manner, but decisions where you're not left scratching your head wondering, what the heck were you thinking when you called that play? You give momentum right back to the Eagles again, and they get points off of it. They got 10 points off of turnovers and another 3 points off of a dumb call by Mike McCarthy.
Listen, even if everything within your being says, okay, I want to go for it here, you're down 14 points. You cannot, even if you don't challenge it, you cannot go for it, on 4th and 1 from your own 34-yard line. In the first half? Are you kidding me? I mean, I'd be surprised if, I shouldn't say surprised. It wouldn't surprise me if you wake up tomorrow and Kellen Moore was the interim head coach of Dallas.
The Eagles got points off of that. They get a field goal. They continue this second half dominance. Even though that first touchdown really ate up the back end of the first quarter, they scored that touchdown in the second quarter, which means they got 20 more points in that second quarter. Their point differential is like a plus 90 in the second quarter against teams. Can you explain that, D?
I can't explain this Jekyll and Hyde team, because every time you watch them play, it's basically the same scenario, and you're thinking to yourself, okay, they're going to go back and look at the film. They're going to make the necessary adjustments, and they're going to come out playing a more complete game in the second half. And lo and behold, they play a similar game to what they played the previous week, and all of a sudden the opposition creeps back into the game and make Eagles fans sweat a little bit too much. I can't figure this out to save my life.
Oh, I've got to figure it out. Okay.
Now remember, whatever you say, might be misunderstood on Twitter, so be careful what you say.
Who cares? They're gonna, some like, some don't. For who? For what? All right. Okay. So I think the first quarter always winds up being a feel it out period, for the Eagles offense. By the time they get to the second quarter, I give them credit because they do make adjustments in the second quarter in order for them to be as explosive in the second quarter as they've been throughout 6 games. And then after they get a lead, I think it happens on both sides of the ball. They get complacent. I think we get passive on the defensive side, which I think everybody can agree with. We get passive on the defensive side. We get to a point where we don't want to give up a play that will allow the opponent to get back into the game. But then what you wind up doing is you wind up giving up real estate in small chunks, and then what winds up happening invariably, the thing you're protecting against is the thing that happens anyway. And then offensively, we kind of get out of rhythm again because it's the running game that gets us to a point where the rest of the entire playbook is open, where you can go bootlegs and RPOs and misdirection things, that gives Jalen an opportunity to throw the ball. But then we get away from it again. And then, we just want to go straight pocket passes, shotgun, and he's standing in the pocket, and, the pressure's coming, and he's scrambling, running for his life. And then all of a sudden, the game gets tight. To your point, they figure out a way. What they do is they go back to what got them the lead in the first place. They start running the ball again, and that opens the playbook back up again.
The Cowboys got a little momentum towards the half when it was 20-0. They did. Cooper Rush did open up a little bit and almost had an amazing touchdown catch by Noah Brown there in the corner of the end zone. So they wound up getting 3. The Eagles got the ball in the second half. I'm thinking, okay, well they're going to score off of that. But then Dallas figured something out running the football with Zeke Elliott, and that was a pretty sustained, good drive by them. And then they get it to 20-10. On that touchdown, Kayvon Wallace is in the game for C.J. Gardner-Johnson, and he got duped on that play with Zeke running for the touchdown. So that's what happened on that play.
Well, it's just inexperience. I mean, when you think about Kayvon Wallace, drafted in, I believe, the 3rd round a couple of years ago, he just has not panned out to be, what they thought he would be coming out of Clemson. Pressed into service tonight, and obviously, he wasn't ready or prepared to step in. At this point, he's still a special teams player, and I think that's why you see them go in and they try to sign the safety out of, they trade for the safety from the 49ers who doesn't work out. Then they make a trade, for Gardner-Johnson, a guy who is a slot corner, and they convert him to safety because the guy that they drafted to be safety, a couple of years ago, just hasn't grown into that role. He hasn't matured into that role. He hasn't fulfilled the expectations of that spot in which he was drafted.
It's the only sub they've had this year that really hasn't done a great job really on that play. So I guess we have to take that. All right, so coming up, we're going to have our diamond debate. And I'm curious to know what this diamond debate is going to be here. I would assume it's along the lines like, is this really real? This 6-0, is it really real? Could it turn into 10, 11-0? They get to 12-0. Is this going to be the story of the NFL if this team can manage to go undefeated?
Anything's possible after watching this team through the first 6 games. Will you look at some of the teams that lost today? The 49ers lost a game today. Green Bay lost for the 2nd week in a row. So on and so forth. Teams you expect to win are finding ways to lose ball games. This Philadelphia Eagles team, as imperfect as they can be, they find ways to pull games out. Right now, they do it better than anybody else in the National Football League. It's not always going to be perfect. We're going to have debates about certain aspects of this team that we shouldn't have to talk about because they won again, but it's necessary because it's somewhere down the road it is going to jump up and bite them. But the bottom line is they are winning football games. I never thought this team would be sitting here at 6-0 right now, but they are. And each week they've done it differently. And the bottom line is when you look at teams struggling right now, the Rams, teams like the 49ers, Tampa Bay loses again today.
They're all erratic.
It's
Every team is erratic except this team.
It's unbelievable.
This is what stands out with this team. Now, they came in as a 6-point favorite tonight. They won 26-17.
Yes.
Like we're trying to figure out a way to complain about it.
Vegas always knows something we don't know. I don't know what kind of insights they have, but they always know something we don't know, and they're right more times than not.
Listen, they are the best team right now in the NFC, hands down. You know, I think that their next challenge is going to be the Giants. When you look over at the AFC, I look at the creativity, you know, of Andy Reid. And I look at, you know, I look at how great Josh Allen is. I mean, he's a difference maker. I'm not so sure how the Eagles would fare against those two teams, especially when you talk about, you know, the type of quarterback that Patrick Mahomes is and the mindset that Jonathan Gannon has and the type of defense that we would play against them. And then when you think about, you know, Buffalo the same way. Yeah. I mean, you know, I just don't see the game plan corresponding to us being able to create the pressure.
So we're talking about the actual Super Bowl matchup.
Exactly.
Right now.
Well, I mean, that's the only way you face them. Exactly.
Maybe, but even if they were on the schedule, you understand what I'm saying?
I get that. I don't think they're in that class. I'll agree with you there.
Well, I'm not saying that they're not in that class. I just think that would be a major challenge for them. When you talk about the power rankings, people will begin to talk about the power rankings, and the Eagles have slowly but surely moved up. I seen one ranking today that had the Eagles at 2 and the Kansas City Chiefs at 3 with the Buffalo Bills at 1. You know, when we started off earlier in the year and the Eagles started off 3-0, I said, Bills, Chiefs, or Chiefs, Bills, right. Eagles. I think the Eagles fall right in between either one of them, wherever you want to put them right now. But I think if those two teams were on the schedule, those would be the two teams that I would worry about the most. When I look at the rest of the schedule, I don't worry about a whole lot of anything else. You know, my biggest concerns are going to be Dallas on Christmas Eve, and then the 2 games against the Giants. And worst case scenario, they split. But the Giants, you know, I said it 2 weeks ago, the Giants are going to be a problem, man. They're really going to be a problem because Saquon's healthy. Daniel Jones is playing the best that he's ever played in his career. And they got and they've got one of the most.
I'm not buying that a little bit.
Oh, come on, man.
I'm not buying that a little bit.
I'm buying it.
The Giants all of a sudden are formidable.
I'm buying it.
Stop.
I think Brian Daboll.
D, are you buying it? They got one of the best defensive coordinators in the league.
And Wink Martindale.
One of the best defense coordinators in the league, and one of the best head coaches and offensive coordinators.
Brian Daboll is getting more out of.
Not good enough right now.
Well, but Brian Daboll is getting more out of Daniel Jones than I ever thought he could. I'm not saying Daniel Jones is an elite quarterback.
I know,
but he's playing the most efficient football I've seen him play since he's been in the league.
I gotta sit here and be scared of the Giants.
I'm putting a note down.
I didn't say scared. I'm saying they're playing better football.
I said there's a concern.
There's no concern here. I ain't concerned.
That's okay. Listen, you just like everybody else on social media is
my eyeballs.
Listen.
Come on, you're not going to tell me the Giants are in the same ballpark right now.
In the same ballpark. Nobody's saying the same ballpark.
What are you saying?
I'm saying that the Giants right now can be competitive with anybody. You don't do what they just did over the last 4 weeks and not have some kind of concern for them if they're in your division, because you want to know something? 2 years ago, the last 2-3 years, everybody looked at the Giants on the schedule and said, guess what? Oh, those are 2 wins every single year. Yeah. You ain't saying that now.
Yeah.
I don't care what you say. You ain't saying that right now.
To zero in on me here.
Okay.
Let me zero in.
Note to self.
The Giants.
Let me put a note to myself right now, and I'll make sure I put it right here.
Fool's gold, the Giants. All right, all you Giant fans, don't get excited. Don't get excited. Let's take a break.
Mike Miss.
It is the Lehocky Eagles postgame show.
Wait. Let me see here. Today is the 17th. Oh, Monday the 17th.
Okay.
Stop.
Officially.
10-17.
On the East Coast.
Devin Caney is joining us with the Diamond Debate. She's sporting some bling today. You got to check this out. Come right back.
Oh, my goodness.
It is the Lehocky Eagles postgame show. We're back after this.
Hi, everybody. My name's Jason Lombardi. I'm an inspector at DryTech. At DryTech, we offer 3 major services, the first one being basement waterproofing, The second service we offer is foundation and structural repairs. And then the third service that we offer is mold remediation. If you feel you are having a waterproofing issue, give DryTech a call or check us out online.